Good evening, everybody. Let the minutes reflect that adequate notice of this meeting has been approved in the following manner. Oh no, I'm in the wrong seat. I'm going to scoot while I talk. On Monday, November 26th, notice this meeting was posted in the public bulletin board in the first floor main hall of the Board of Education building, 22 Valley Road, and filed with the township clerk. The time, date, and location of this meeting are accurately set forth therein. On Wednesday, November 28th, 2018, notice this meeting was posted in the Herald News. The date, time, and location of this meeting are accurately set forth therein. On Thursday, November 29th, 2018, notice this meeting was posted in the Montclair Times. The date, time, and location of this meeting are accurately set forth therein. Please be advised that this meeting is considered a public meeting under the law and may be taped, broadcast, used, or reproduced in ways and in mediums beyond the control of the Board of Education. Individual statements and opinions expressed are solely those of the speakers and do not necessarily represent the Montclair Board of Education. Please keep in mind that if you directly disclose personally identifiable information or personally sensitive data regarding yourself or others during this public meeting, this information may be collected and used by others. Accordingly, the Board asks that members of the public be courteous and mindful of the rights of other individuals when speaking. Specifically, comments regarding students and employees of the Board are discouraged. Students and employees have specific legal rights afforded to them by the laws of New Jersey. The Board bears no responsibility and will not be liable for any comments made by members of the public. Speakers should therefore carefully evaluate their statements for individual consequences under the law and should obtain any appropriate professional advice prior to speaking. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Roll call, please.
Ms. Herzog.
Here.
Ms. Church.
Here.
Mr. Connick.
Here.
Ms. Jana.
Here.
Mr. Cabbage.
Here.
Ms. Mernon. And Ms. Robertson.
Here.
Okay, Madam Superintendent, the floor is yours.
Good evening. Today was move-in day at the high school. Staff and students moved into the temporary classroom, and Principal Grosso reports that all is well. Montclair High School staff will continue to monitor the transition and make adjustments if and as necessary. A special thank you is extended to our Director of Facilities and Grounds, John Eschman, his entire facilities team, as well as the Montclair building inspectors, the manager for the town, the mayor, our fire inspector, the Essex County superintendent, and the New Jersey Department of Education commissioner and his team. Due to the amazing support, we were able to secure temporary classrooms, get them set up, get them properly and officially approved, and secure a certificate of occupancy in an unprecedented amount of time. We are truly thankful for all of the support, and in particular, we appreciate the grace that our amazing Montclair High School staff and students have displayed during the opening months of this very interesting school year. In terms of Glenfield, please note I publicly communicated recently that we will be engaging in a structural analysis of each of our school buildings. To date, 2 structural analysis reports have been completed, Northeast and Glenfield. In terms of immediate needs, Glenfield so far requires further analysis. In order to conduct this analysis in the most prudent fashion, we have elected to relocate 2 classrooms at Glenfield Middle School into other classrooms within the school community. We will be sending out a communication to families and students and staff by the end of the week just to give you a status of what we have noticed. In particular, we know that there is an attic situation where we need to assess the structural soundness of that particular area. We appreciate the Glenfield staff for their support during this process. In terms of a curricular update, I'm pleased to share that we are in the process of finalizing our students' accelerated in learning materials. We will have those screening documents and toolkits available for staff to review at the January professional development. It is our goal by the end of the year to have all students K through 8 screened again using these enhanced tools. So we appreciate all of the staff members that are working very diligently in that regard. As a follow-up to the Student Equity Advocate presentation on November the 7th, I published a statement regarding an updated presentation that will take place at the next board meeting, December 17th. For those of you who have not had an opportunity to visit our website, I invite you to do so, but for now, I would like to publicly read that statement. On November the 7th, 2018, our district's student equity advocate presented information regarding concerns voiced to him by students and our parents. The presentation may have created confusion and concerns regarding, 1, the handling of student and caregiver-generated information or complaints, and 2, inaccurate representation of school data. Student safety and well-being, as we all know, is our first priority. Additionally, accurately reporting information is a priority as well. To this end, a revised presentation will be made at the next board meeting, and I will lead that discussion. During that presentation, the following items will be discussed. The process that's currently used to document how the student equity advocate receives student and parent concerns, the process that governs how the student equity advocate communicates those concerns to the administration, the process that governs investigations associated with student and parent concerns, the process that is used to ensure that all internal and external stakeholders are normed regarding the first 3 steps, the process that the student equity advocate uses to document and record data for each school, revised data points for each school with clearly outlined definitions so that as a community we are normed. And then finally, the process that will be used to inform this board as well as the community on a semi-annual basis. The presentation will be posted the day after the board meeting onto our district's website. I would be remiss if I didn't express my sincere gratitude to our teachers, support staff, administrators, parents, guardians, and community members for raising critical questions related to this report as we collectively come together to continue pursuing equity, access, and opportunity within our school district. For parents and guardians planning a trip or vacation during regularly scheduled school calendar days, please note I will be sending out a communication tomorrow about this topic. Our district, as you know, must follow the New Jersey law when calculating student absences, and unfortunately, taking trips and vacations on school days are considered unexcused absences. As it stands now, the school district is under corrective action for chronic absenteeism, and we're going to work diligently together to ensure that we improve our attendance rate as a district. Effective February 1st, 2019, we want to get families and community acclimated to this piece. Trips and vacations, as you know, are deemed unexcused. We would no longer require staff members to use their additional time to create packets for students who are going away on vacations for 2 and 4 weeks. We are going to respectfully ask our families to get that work upon their return to school. And when they return to school, students can work with their teachers during teachers' regularly scheduled time set aside to support students. We are going to continue to be partners with our families and make sure that our students achieve, and we just want to stress the need to have our students in school. Nothing takes the place of high quality instruction. Those packets don't take the place. So we really want to norm together. I just want to give that communication. If parents have questions, you're always invited to reach out to me personally. I'm pleased to report I attended a junior class meeting yesterday, and they were just delightful and vibrant and full of synergy. Of course, our students had tons of questions about what's going on with this Parcc testing. They opted out. You told us we can opt out. Now you're changing the rules. So the students are quite engaged. To that end, we gave them a formal presentation. We sent communications to our families, and I've invited our director of STEM, Jennifer Goforth, who is also our district's testing coordinator, to come before this body to explain the things that we know as a result of changes to the New Jersey Department of Education graduation requirements, what we are going to do immediately to position our juniors to have an opportunity during the school year and not during the summer to meet these expectations, and just outline a plan that to partner with our families and our kids. We're going to get through this. I know junior year is stressful, and we are going to definitely talk to our teachers, and they're going to continue to have grace as you are working during the day and you're taking the Parcc exam. So we will wrap our arms around you, because we know that this is something that we have to adjust to, and I think it's a good lesson in living, that the rules of engagement change, and we need to change ourselves and make sure that we have our village to support us. So at this time, I would like to invite our director of STEM to provide a quick presentation for you. Copies are available if you're interested on the table, and we will also have this presentation posted to our website tomorrow. Ms. Goforth, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. Good evening, Dr. Johnson, President Herzog, and board members. The class of 2020 is directly affected as the first cohort with changes to their state graduation assessment requirements. The requirements as per the New Jersey Department of Education that were revised at the end of Parcc testing in the spring in May of 2018 were changed and affected the current junior class because the old requirements said that they could pass any Parcc test, Parcc 9, 10, or 11, ELA, Algebra 1, Geometry, or Algebra 2 for math. With the new changes became pathways. And the first pathway is that all students must pass ELA 10 and Algebra 1. Again, keep in mind, Algebra 1 is taken during the course of their K-12 experience. So if they are taking Algebra 1 or Algebra B in middle school, that is when they will take the Parcc Algebra 1 assessment, and it will be counted towards their state graduation requirements. The grade, the passing scores that are needed are also listed underneath the assessment, level 4 for ELA 10 and Algebra 1. The second pathway is if they do not pass ELA 10 or Algebra 1, there is a list of alternate assessments. And keep in mind, these are only available to students if they take all of the Parcc assessments that are associated with courses that they are enrolled in at the high school. In other words, all of the juniors have to take Parcc ELA 9, 10, and 11 in order to have any of these other assessments count towards graduation. SAT, ACT, AccuPlacer, PSAT, to name a few. For math, they have to have taken Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2 when enrolled in that course. Keep in mind, if students double up in math, they only take the algebra test, and they are taking that during any course of their K-12 experience. There is a third pathway for students who do not pass any of the alternate assessments from the first or second pathway. And the third pathway option is a senior portfolio process. This portfolio process takes a team to complete with our seniors. Our district has had great running with the portfolio process. We have had 100% of our students who go through this process complete it successfully. However, it does entail additional short assessments that can add up to anywhere between 5 to 10 assessments completed after school between April to May of senior year, which is also a critical time for seniors as well. It also includes submitting graded work samples, all state assessments, parent meetings with counselors, teachers, and our staff works diligently to make this possible. For details on all of the assessments, we have a summary of state, district, and other testing that is available and linked on our website. We are keeping our website up to date with all of the latest updates from the superintendent, myself, and the state. You can find it by going to the district tab, equity, curriculum, and instruction, and assessments. So the big question is, what if a student has refused testing, did not test, they were sick, and they have no results, no scores on file? We have 3 scenarios for students during testing. They either pass the test, they failed the test, or there are no results on file. In order to make sure that all of our students are eligible for graduation, we started with the first pathway. All students who have no results on file for Algebra 1 and ELA 10 will take the assessment between December 11 to December 13 after school. For those students who have failed Algebra 1 and ELA 10, which is their first required pathway, and they did not take the ELA 9 or geometry assessment, they will also take that the following week after school on December 17 to 19. What does this look like for Montclair High School? Class of 2020 students, our numbers are 220 students need to take ELA 10, 27 will take ELA 9, 170 students will take Algebra 1, and 27 students will take geometry. When can students take additional Parcc assessments? All of our juniors will be registered to take the Parcc ELA 11 test this spring. And all juniors who are enrolled in Algebra 2 will take the Parcc Algebra 2 assessment. Students who did not pass Parcc Algebra 1 and Geometry and did not take Algebra 2 will also take it during this time in the spring. For summer testing, that will take place between July 29 to August 1st, and there will be also instruction made available for students to prepare as we are looking to offer this assessment in the summer for those who failed or did not take Parcc. How can you find your child's assessment scores? You can log into Genesis and look at the assessment tab. Passing scores are highlighted in green. Missing or blank scores mean that we have no results on file. And other test scores are also listed there, including SAT, ACT, and PSAT. Students who are exempt from passing statewide assessments are only required to take the first pathway, which is the Parcc Algebra 1 and ELA 10, or DLM. How can students prepare for the test? Parcc.pearson.com has sample test items, tutorials, practice tests, and answer keys all readily available. The practice tests are online assessments that include practicing with accommodations as needed. I would be remiss if I did not thank the large team that I have been working with to make this happen. First, I would like to thank Superintendent Dr. Johnson for recognizing the need for our juniors to have the opportunity to not just test in the spring and summer, but to also have an immediate assessment this December. Dustin Bayer, our Director of Guidance, and Anthony Grosso, the principal of Montclair High School, have also diligently been working to make this possible and communicating with the team of teachers and staff needed to make this possible for our students. Dr. Siobhan Trim, our Special Ed Accommodations Coordinator, and the numerous teachers, counselors, technology team, support staff, and our new Director of Technology, who's also diligently working to make sure the devices are ready, the network is good, and this is all possible. Thank you.
So thank you, Ms. Goforth. Before we open up the floor, there's a couple of things I would like to just clarify for the community. When we met with our juniors, we had some very sage questions and recommendations from our young people. And the first one was, why did we not immediately test our young people in May? And to that response, when we talked about it internally, we was of the hope that this would be overturned very quickly, and we were not correct. So we did not immediately open up a window in May, and that was something that in hindsight perhaps we could have done. We were under the impression, based on the sources that we had, that this would not go into effect. There would be enough advocacy for it not to go into effect. However, it has gone into effect, and as a result, we are making adjustments for December. Also, several students shared their philosophical beliefs around standardized testing in Parcc. And to those questions, our young people, we are not making a philosophical stance on whether or not standardized testing in Parcc is necessity. What we're doing as advocates for you is making sure that there's no barriers come graduation day in terms of us certifying your high school diploma. This is not a local decision. It's not a superintendent's decision. It's not a Montclair Board of Education decision. This is New Jersey Department of Education sets the standards and the criteria for what is needed to gain a New Jersey high school diploma. And into that statement, we have several students and a few parents who have declared that they will not have their students sit for the Parcc exam. I would be remiss if I did not publicly state that as it stands now, this is a state requirement. And you make that decision knowing that when graduation comes and we don't have the criteria there, we would not be able to issue a Montclair high school diploma. So I want to be very clear about that and not make any misunderstandings that as it stands now, students who do not complete the assessment criteria, whichever pathway you so elect, you will not be able to get a New Jersey high school diploma. Again, that's not a Dr. Johnson decision. It's not a Montclair Board of Education decision. I invite you all to trust but verify. Go to the New Jersey Department of Education's website and review that information. And then the last question, I'm just sharing, the students actually supported this. Why after school? Junior year is so critical, and we did not want to take any more time away from the school day. We've made, and we will continue to make, requests of our teachers to be ginger and have grace with our juniors during the next couple of weeks as they prepare to have a full work day and then move into testing. So that was a local decision. I made the decision to hold after school when weighing all of the missed instruction that our young people have had, and with the opportunity to make sure they are ready for SAT and ACT that many of them are taking this spring, and we did not want to take that instructional time away. So again, I just wanted to add a few extra clarifying points, and thank you, Ms. Goforth, and we can turn it over to the board for questions.
Questions from the board?
Just what were the two, December 11 to 13, excuse me, and the 17th to the 19th?
I do want to make a comment. Montclair had the highest opt-out rate when the Parcc test was brought in, and Montclair as a district has had the highest opt-out rate historically since this has happened. And I believe that as a board, it behooves us and it behooves the public to put more pressure on the Department of Education to work harder to eliminate this test. And The governor did campaign saying he wanted to eliminate it. So I'm not talking about, this is fine, but I'm talking in general to the public and to this board, and that we need to take a stand. We need to defend our students, because our students in good faith opted out based on their belief, their family and their belief that they didn't feel it was an appropriate measure of their children's academic progress. And now to be in this position, I'm hesitant to say okay. I'm hesitant to say okay, just like that. I think we should look into how this happened. Look into the State Board of Education and their actions and who it was that influenced the State Board of Education to keep this regulation in place, because there were certain forces that did that. Certain assembly people, certain senators, state senators, and I, for one, believe that part of our role is advocacy. It is not just regulations and doing what the state says. And by the way, the state doesn't just rule us. We are our own district, and there are parts of this that I feel we should have a say in. So I am myself going to advocate. I myself am going to look into how to, who we can talk to at the Department of Education, I'm going to look into who I can talk to advocate for this, and the State Board of Education, because it was the State Board of Education that made this decision. And so I feel very strongly about it. The rest of the country has rejected the Parcc testing. This whole movement towards this type of testing has been debunked all across the country. And for us in New Jersey, who have some of the best schools, we have the second best schools in the country, to be operating under this, putting these kids under this kind of strain and making them take extra tests that they didn't want to take in the first place, and they may be doing very well in these classes. So I just wanted to make that statement, because I don't want it to go unnoticed that we in Montclair had a very strong message from our public that these kinds of tests were not the tests that they wanted to have their children be assessed from. So I really want to, but you don't have to clap. What you have to do is get busy. So you need to get in touch with people on the State Board of Education. You need to get in touch with Assemblywoman, our Assembly people, Mr. Giblin, Nia Gill, whoever it is that is in the legislature, and the governor and the commissioner of education.
The Senate president.
Well, yes, and our good friend. So I want, this isn't anything about this part of it. This is all about the public being galvanized. If this is what you strongly believe, and if history shows us, that's what many people in this community believe. They opted their children out of the test since third grade. So
I promised I'd be brief. I agree with everything Ms. Robinson said in terms of advocacy. Leave the advocacy to us. My message is for the students. Pick your battles in life. You need the piece of paper for certain things. You don't need it for other things. If you've been going to class, you'll do okay on the test. And if you don't, and that'll give you an opportunity to do other things. Is it fair that you don't have to do things sometimes that you don't want to? No, it's not fair. Life is not always fair. But don't make yourself, there are so many things to make yourself not so bad as a high school student. Don't let this be one of them. Enjoy your adolescence and let the board and other people fight these battles, and just spend an afternoon, fill in the box. We don't fill in our boxes anymore. Press the buttons, get it done, and get on with your lives. You have everything waiting for you.
Anyone else have anything very, very brief to say? No? Thank you. Okay. So we've gotten a couple of written reports from the committees that people have had a chance to review. Does anybody, committee member, committee chair or liaison, have any verbal updates they want to give in addition?
Just one thing, quick. Oh, I'm sorry.
I think Ms. Church.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. All right. I've got an urban boards meeting Friday night, and one of the items on their agenda is what should urban education look like? So if anyone has any thoughts or ideas and wants to weigh in on that, just shoot me an email sometime between today and Friday at 6 p.m., which is when urban board meetings are. I do not know why Friday 6 at Trenton is such a good time to meet, but that's when it is.
We generally do committee reports if we're going to do them at workshop meetings. So, no, nothing's worth, okay. So this is a workshop meeting, so this would be the night that you would do it if you felt like there was something you wanted to share. Carry on.
Okay, this is the policy report for the meeting that was conducted on November 12th. Before I get started, I have an agenda for that memorializes the meeting for each board member, and this is just a supplemental packet that I think would be of interest. The committee met, as I said, on November 12th, and we were busy. What we did first was review just a few district regulations that the board had asked us to review. Many of them were aligned with the policies that were on the board minutes of the last meeting for the first read. So we actually did some revisions and editing for the equal opportunity and anti-discrimination regulation, for the disclosure and review of applicants' employment history, the medical examination prior to participation on the school-sponsored interscholastic or intramural team and squads, eligibility of resident and non-resident status, the transgender student regulation, enrollment, accounting, and the food nutrition standards. All right, these were then are now being worked on by Dr. Harrison Crawford, and will be ready for first read or however you want to handle the regulations on, I'm assuming, December 17th. In addition, the following policies were reviewed and edited by the committee that evening. And these were new policies that we hadn't looked at in the prior meeting. And what we got through was the varsity letters for interscholastic extracurricular activities, educational equity and racism, harassment, intimidation, and bullying, and reporting potentially missing or abused children. Those are also in preparation for being forwarded to the December 17th first read and comment by the board and the community. We have a section of what we call ongoing focus. So what we do actually there is just a spot check. It's something that our attention is on, but they have a long-range plan. And we're just touching base to make sure there might not be any difficulties that are stalling it, and everything is moving in the timeline that we had set so that we could bring these goals to fruition. So as far as the board requiring additional attention to the annual training for the CUSAC reporting, it's on track. This report by Dr. Harrison Crawford is being developed, and we should have something as planned by January, which I'll include in my January report, which will give us an update on all the mandated trainings that were required for the district. The Code of Conduct review that I mentioned in the last meeting is in the Restorative Justice Committee's hands. They have their timeline is until the end of December. So they're still working on that, and at that point we will forward it to the principals at that time for their comments. So that's in progress. Unfortunately, we did have to cancel our October 3rd meeting, December 3rd meeting because of the sad circumstances of Dr. Harrison Crawford's husband's passing. At that particular time, we had intentions of cleaning up other things that are on our quick report. I had spoken to Dr. Harrison Crawford at length, and we have certain things that are hanging there because we need input from other people. And at the particular time, she was going to ensure that we got some type of final determination. So we're going to be carrying this meeting over until December 12th. And what that will entail is harassment, intimidation, and bullying, which needs to have a final review from the HIB coordinator, should be completed. The gifted and talented students policy just needs to have an integration of the SAIL program. The educational equity and racism policy doesn't need to be changed. It's just that the board determined the formatting of it was not in line with the formatting of the rest of the policy. So we had decided that we would want to keep the document the same. So we're having that reformatted. And from the Director of Special Services, we're waiting for the use of physical restraint and seclusion techniques for students with disabilities. So that should be completed for that meeting. Most importantly, on that agenda are just a few odds and ends that are finalizations of anything that's left open from the from the 214 alert, the 215, and the 216 alerts. So that this agenda, the reason I'm mentioning it, by the time we finish it, we will have caught up with everything that the state had mandated us to catch up on. So that will be our next meeting that's rescheduled for the 12th. I just want the board to know and the public that we have a lot of upcoming work that we're anxious to get started with. The state has an index of regulations that should be adopted by the board. For the benefit of the people and the public, regulations are something that the district actually works on. The board doesn't specifically have to work on developing regulations. We're responsible for developing policy. But there are, in fact, I counted them. There are 52 regulations that the board has to adopt and has to approve. So we'll be adding those to our future agendas in 2019, and we'll be working on them throughout the year. The attachment that I gave you is the Strauss-Esme audit summary. They really were very good to us. They turned it around in less than a month. And it's really a good thing because all of our I could say now that all of our policies have been updated, and we'll have a 2018 tag on it, which is really excellent. I gave you copies of this because I think the document is an important document for you to see. Basically, I could say that 90% of the policies are approved as it is and could be left, except if we decide that we might want to work on them or revisit them at some point. However, they did note, and you will see this when you get a chance to review it, that there are 44 policies that do require updates. 3 of them are at the board's discretion. So at the time those 3 come up on our agendas, I'll bring them to you and we'll discuss whether or not you actually want us to proceed with those. In addition to that, Superintendent and other board members have also requested our committee to look at an opt-up policy, a non-resident tuition policy, a field trip policy, and a summer homework policy. These are things which will be going on our future agenda, along with a curriculum alignment among schools policy, a recess policy, which we're presently waiting for an update from the state as well as from Strauss-Esme. The state has made it clear that as of September 2019, they will no longer be allowing schools to use the 150 hours, using recess as part of the 150 hours of physical education. They're going to be coming up with some guidelines for us on what they still want the 150 hours. So they're going to be coming up with some guidelines of alternate things that schools can consider, which is going to change our policy. So I've been talking to Dr. Johnson about this, and at the time that we get these recommendations from the state, this committee will certainly make it a priority to work on that policy so that we can have it ready for September and have the district apprised of what the changes will be. The last one on this short list, which I'm sure will grow throughout the year, is also an open campus policy. We've received some public comment regarding our work, and It's really nice to be able to report that people in the public are really pleased with the things that we've been doing on the committee, and the committee is very grateful for that support. They have asked if possibly we would look at some type of policy that goes beyond recycling, something that has to do with a sense of creating a sense of environmentalism, and also possibly looking at something for students of parents that have non-resident status. So this is something that I've added to our list of things to do, and we could have talks as a board moving forward as to undocumented. Yes. 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 I'm sorry. Yes. So basically, the report shows you again that the committee is moving forward, still full steam ahead. We've gotten a lot of work done. We have a lot of work ahead of us, and we're very excited about just doing the work. Anybody have any questions? Okay, thank you.
She's a workhorse.
Yeah, I just want to note that when I asked her to take on this role, she wasn't sure she was up to it. And I'm glad that I was proven that correct. That she was, in fact, frighteningly up to it. So thank you for that report. Does anyone else dare to give a report after that one? All right, bars high.
So the Communications Committee met again on November 28th. And I think all of you have the notes from that meeting. There's sort of three categories that we were looking at. One was the board communication with the community, and we had talked previously about having two forums. We were looking at dates that are in the notes circulated. If people can just sort of tentatively hold those dates. I have reached out to the library to see if we can have library space. The dates, well, they're not final at all, so I don't want to put them out loud. They're just a set of dates that we looked at. And what we're trying to do is have a space where the board and the public can meet and talk about the role of the board, and in the second meeting, perhaps here, I have discussion around some of the committee work being done. And so the first meeting we're hoping for at the end of January, beginning of February at the main library, and then the second meeting at the Bellevue Avenue branch. And that would be towards the end of April. The second part of the work of the Communication Committee was to look at reporting from the superintendent to the board. And we've spent a lot of time on this, looking at what kind of governance level reporting the board should be receiving and what makes sense. And I think all of you have seen this. It's really a summation of reports that that would come into the superintendent from the superintendent's direct reports, and it would include topics like major initiatives and or issues, instruction and learning or curriculum, special needs, budget and changes to the financial outlook, personnel needs, climate and culture, facilities, technology. And then it would also look at major initiatives that we're working on, so work related to the achievement gap, restorative justice, the student equity advocate work, any legal issues that are surfacing, progress and issues related to CUSAC, how we're doing on NJDOE required training, any major community developments, whether it's PTA, MFEE, Team Up Montclair, or CPAC. And then also the board would like to get a summary to the bills and claims report that we get, just noting any unbudgeted items and comments on any significant expenses. So that was something we had talked about previously, and then we talked with Dr. Johnson, who was at the meeting, and it was really helpful, and I really appreciate your time on that because I know it was a late meeting. We talked about maybe putting that in place as of the end of January, I believe, right? So that was the second item. The third item was within the board, so communication within the board. And just committee reporting, which we're doing now. We thought we would try to start after this meeting, having some standards around that. So Laura has already done work on putting together a schedule of meetings, which is really helpful. We appreciate that. We wanted to have a standard schedule of meetings published to the full board, a process for setting the committee agendas, a sort of agreed timeline, basic template for reporting out from committee meetings, and then a process for recording feedback from the committee meeting, suggestions to the full board, and then the full board's feedback so that we can sort of finalize our plans going forward. We talked also about board president reporting to start again after the December 5th meeting, assuming it's good with all of the board, to provide a weekly update to the full board regarding legal developments, any significant internal district/BOE developments between meetings, and any subjects discussed at community meetings where the board president is in attendance discussing business of the Board of Education. And then the last part of the internal board communication that we talked about was the follow-up reporting from that. And Dr. Johnson has already put together a template for us, which I think we've all received and had an opportunity to comment on. We're going to create some sort of, well, I think it's already there, right, as a Google Doc, where we can all have a place where any issues that come up during board meetings or in board discussion are tracked for follow-up, and that we know we're not losing sight of them. So these are the things that were discussed in the last meeting. We did put dates against getting them implemented, and our goal here was really just to create a living structure for us to operate as a board in a professional way. So that's my report. If anyone has comments or thoughts.
My only comment is, and I think this is really important, all of us spend time at community events in different parts of the community. So what you said about the board president reporting back to any events that the president attends where board business is being discussed, community events, that I think anybody who does that needs to report that back to the board.
So how should we put this in here? Should we put this as part of our weekly?
I don't have really an issue about how often it's done. I think that whatever you have in there for board president just should be board members.
Okay. So I'll modify. Does everyone agree with that? Okay. So I'll modify this to include that. And then we'll circulate as a final. Is everyone comfortable with the dates and all of that?
Could you circulate it one more time as a draft and then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Actually, and when you circulate it next, by that point, do you think you'll have those dates for sure? Do you want to wait until you know those dates for sure before you circulate, or just?
As soon as I get the dates from the library, I'm going to check with everyone's calendars. Because what I'm doing, I gave them, I think it was 4 or 5 dates. They're in here for each of the 2 forums to see what their calendars look like. Okay.
Just a question on process here. When you were talking about committee reporting, you had stated here that the chair should circulate a proposed agenda in advance with the opportunity for members to comment. You're talking about the agendas for the actual committee work? So in other words, when I send the agenda to the policy committee, I should send it to the full board?
That was a suggestion that we had, thinking that, and my own thoughts on it were, if I know that you're working on policy and I'm concerned about a particular policy right now that I may not have communicated, and I know you're meeting, I'd love to be able to jump in and say, while you're meeting, can you prioritize looking at the policy on whatever, you know.
Okay. So then the template and agreed timeline for notes published from committee meetings to full board, they shouldn't, all right, the dates, that part of it. The draft notes to committee members within 3 days of the meeting. Is that in addition to this oral report that we give during workshop?
So after the committee meeting was to send, just like you got a draft of the notes from the meeting in your inbox, so you can look at it in advance of this meeting. So when we come to this meeting, people have had a chance to look at what it was the policy committee discussed, or the finance committee, or the communications committee.
So in other words, this document that I passed out today, I can send in advance and you could look at, because basically it's the same
great.
thing.
Yes.
Would you want more detailed notes on what was discussed, or just? Okay.
Please stop.
What?
Please stop.
Well, no, I'm hoping you'll say please stop.
No, this is great.
I mean, I don't mind
This is
forwarding
great.
this early because I have it. That's
This is
fine.
great. Seriously.
Okay.
No, this is
okay.
great.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Okay, all right, I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't deeper work. Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Very
Thank
deep.
you.
Can I just go back to the thing you were talking about, though? Because now I brought it up on my phone, which was so dumb. I could have done that all this time. The weekly update thing. But there are some things that would come from the board president. Some would come from all board members. But legal development, significant internal developments that we might not know about. So I think that should stay in there. The part about the community meetings, you could separate out. But I would keep part of what's in there, because that is significant for us, so that we have open, we all have access to the information. So I think that does need to stay. I don't know what everybody else
I'm
thinks.
fine with doing that.
Okay.
Just bear in mind, particularly if it's something like a legal development, it may be a phone call, not an email, because...
Right. No, that's what we prefer. Yeah.
I think Ms. Jana would like to put a word in.
This is just an update from Climate and Culture Committee. We have met twice. We do have some very good information from actually 2.5 times. We had a half a meeting tonight. We do have some very good information from each building climate team, which I will be sharing with the board. And we will be meeting again in January, at which time we will conform to the process set up by the Communications Committee.
MFEE liaison. I see Masiel is here, so she's going to give a report, but there was a board meeting, and also I had the pleasure of sitting in on the grant application process, and it was really fantastic to see the enthusiasm of the teachers, and a lot of it was around wellness. I know Dr. Johnson will be happy to hear about that, a lot of the projects. So she'll give the report, and there's a lot of exciting things happening with MFEE, and they have a very enthusiastic board, many of whom members are new, and very excited to start the journey of working on the Fund for Educational Excellence. So that's my report.
I have nothing to report. So Mr. DeAndrea is going to get us our list of people for public comment. I see that we have some fresh faces here for public comment. So as a reminder, everybody gets 3 minutes. Ms. Jana will time you and tell you when you have a 30-second warning. Students get to go first, regardless of the order in which you signed up. Remember, it is 3 minutes each to be respectful to everybody else. Please note also, if you're a student, you may have seen board meetings where people give their addresses. Please do not give your address when you go to the podium. So when you go to the podium, you see there's the microphone. There's a button at the base of the microphone. You press the button, and when the light on the red ring is lit up around the microphone, that means the microphone is live and your 3 minutes are starting. So I will call people by name, and I'll call the first couple of people, and then we'll keep going through. also, just to clarify, this is not a dialogue. We ask you to use your 3 minutes. You don't have to use the whole 3 minutes, but it's not a process for you to ask us questions and we answer them. This is your opportunity to say what you want to say in your 3 minutes. If we see trends or concerns that are coming up in the comment, and at the very end of the board comment, to the extent that we can, the superintendent and or I will respond to the issues that, to the extent that we can within the rules, we'll respond to the issues that came up during board comment, but sometimes people become confused because they think they're coming up to have a conversation, and we don't want you to think that we're being disrespectful to you or treating you differently because you're students. That's just not how we do this process, okay? So again, it's 3 minutes per person. Welcome. Do not say what your address is. And the first two people are Nafia Hampton and Sania Scott. So Ms. Hampton, if you could come up to the podium. If all of you who are going to speak would feel more comfortable going up as a group and then just going up as I call your name, that's totally fine too. But it's probably best to just kind of go that way so we don't create a fire hazard, too much of a crowd. Watch the wire, don't, big step, big step. You're athletes, don't trip. Okay, so our first two speakers, and again, I apologize to any grown-ups in the room, non-students in the room who are new. You may have signed up before students, but students get to go first because we want them to go home and do their homework or sleep. So first we have Nafia Hampton and then Sania Scott. Ms. Hampton, the floor is yours. You have 3 minutes.
Good morning, good evening, Superintendent Johnson, Board of Education, and community members. My name is Nafia Hampton, and I'm here to speak about the Montclair High School cheerleading team. On Thanksgiving Eve, Coach Shanice was discharged from her position as head cheerleading coach. The cheerleaders love and respect Coach Shanice. Under her direction, we have grown and improved tremendously. We demonstrate skill and technique when performing organized cheers, stunts, dances, and chants. As a result, we have won first place in 2 competitions and placed second in the 3rd competition. Coach Shanice has served as a nurturing guide to those who and to all of us and have encouraged us to be leaders. The Montclair High School cheerleaders take pride in representing the school with enthusiasm and school spirit. We are serious about cheering and would like to be treated with the same respect as other school sports teams. The discharge of Coach Shanice has caused a halt in us preparing for basketball season. We've been waiting and we're anxious to start the winter season. We understand that the cheerleading coach's position has been posted and interviews have been held. However, we have concerns in result of it and are concerned about transitioning cold with a new coach. Actually, we would like to reinstate Coach Shanice. Otherwise, we recommend that you consider rehiring Coach Shanice as a co-coach to allow for a smooth transition into the winter season. The Montclair High School cheerleaders have been taught that excellence is a must. Please support us in maintaining excellent standards as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hampton. And just make sure you're speaking into the mic when you speak because this is being recorded. Sania Scott and then Madison Lavender.
Okay. Hi. My name is Sanaya.
Sanaya Scott.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I just wanted to speak on behalf of my cheerleading team, on behalf of my coach, when I say that I just feel as though the Montclair High School cheerleading team doesn't get the moral support that we give back to the high school. We support the football team. We support the basketball team in rain, sleet, snow, hail, the worst weather conditions. When they have a game, we are out there to support their team. Other teams, they get after-school study halls, and as our coach Shanice does not have to be to the high school until 4 p.m. because that's when she's supposed to be. That's when practice starts. So it is not her fault that we were unsupervised. It is actually the school's fault. We should have been replaced with a teacher for a study hall to watch us, or just
somebody just to be there to monitor us. We can't. They don't want us in the building. We can't sit in the cold. It's dark outside, and we're outside late, and if we get sick like that, we get the end of the stick all the time. We don't get the moral support. We ask for people to come to one competition. Only 5 football players came. When all 30 plus of us are at each and every single game supporting this team. Coach Shanice was terminated a week before basketball season was supposed to start. Now the basketball team has no cheer team for their sport. And I just feel as though it's unfair to us, and it was just kind of like a slap in the face to the people who wanted to do basketball season, because now we are at a pause and a stop, and we're stuck when Coach Shanice was like a mother figure to everybody on the team. And so was Coach Ty, a mother figure to everybody on the team. And it hurt us, and I just don't think it was fair.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. And we have Madison.
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
As a representation of my concerned mother and myself, a cheerleader, I have to address the lack of respect, support, and acknowledgement the team has received. My mother's assumption is when she drops her daughter off at school, and from that time to the end of practice, I would be monitored and cared for by Montclair staff. When I notified my mother that I, along with my team, were not allowed into the school from 2:33 to 4 p.m. by our athletic director, she was displeased and found it extremely unacceptable. My mother has been in the educational system for over 20 years and knows that my predominantly black female cheer team, who was coached by 2 strong black women, should not be kicked out of the school and should have been provided a study hall or a safe place to stay within the time of the school ends to the beginning of practice, just like every other club and sport. My mother has made it clear that this issue does not fall on the coach, but that it falls on the athletic director, and that my coach should not be penalized for this. My mother is disappointed and upset about the lack of care for my team and I, and our safety, and the little to no respect that the cheerleading team has been provided. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Lavender. Now it's Nancy Marie Jones, then Kendyl Montague. Okay, Kendyl Montague, you want to go first?
Hello, how are you? My name is Kendyl Montague. I am a senior at Montclair High School. I've been on this team for 4 years. It's my second year being a captain. I'm here to talk about my feelings and the termination of my coach. Montclair High School has not had a consistent coach since I've been here. We had our coach, Coach Rush, walk out for her personal reasons. She notified the team. The athletic department did not take it into their own hands to appoint a new coach so we can start our season just like every other sport on time. Instead, we got appointed with a coach that walked out last season, middle of the season, as a matter of fact, at a 12:30 email with no explanation from her nor the athletic department. It's frustrating that as a student, I had to push the interim athletic director to find a coach for us so we can get started. I feel like as a student, that should not be my job. I feel like I had to motivate these girls to stay positive, and the lack of communication from the Montclair and as a whole and the athletic department was very low. The Coach Shanice had step up last minute to take on 2 teams, 2 big responsibilities, and as soon as she did, she stepped right into place, motivated us to stay positive that we're going to have a great season, end the season great, and start a new season on a positive note. She's now taken out for reasons that we have not actually been told by anybody. I'm very disappointed to leave Montclair High School like this, and it just hurts. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Montague. Okay, Ms. Jones, now the floor is yours.
Hi, I'm Nancy. I'm a junior at Montclair High School here. And yesterday, I was in a meeting for the junior class regarding the park testing and all of that going on with Superintendent Johnson. And she informed us that, you know, if you're not taking the park, you're not graduating. And also, before I start, I know it's state mandated. Please do not reinforce that. I want a different solution. She told me that if I wasn't taking the park, I was not graduating. And I have not taken a standardized test since I was in the 4th grade. My mother informed you guys when I was in the 4th grade that from here on out, she was not going to let me take my brother, or my other brother to take any standardized testing because, as law states, if it goes against my spiritual or religious beliefs, I do not have to take it. And as it does, I still expect to be opted out and for you guys to allow me to opt out. And on an unrelated topic, I'm sure you guys know with absences, they were cutting down absences, late, but there is not a bus that goes to the South End and picks anyone up from the South End. Now, when you're expecting students to come to school on time every single day, and they live an hour and 15 minutes away from home, when they're walking here, and you're not allowing them a school bus, but you're allowing students that live in Upper Montclair who are majority white, and you're giving them a public school bus, and then you're telling us that every five lates to school is an absence, and if you go over 16 absences per school year, there's no credit recovery, you're failing the class. Now, how does that make sense? How are you going to tell someone that they're failing a class if they can't come to school, but you're not giving them a school bus to come to school? Thank you. Enjoy your night.
Marie. Nancy Marie, I
Thank
remember
you.
the very first time you decided not to take that test when you were in 4th grade. I remember it clearly as you came over to the school.
Thank you, Dr. Zylstra, and then Ms. Rodriguez-Vars. Good luck, Masiel.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jeff Zylstra, and I am here today to ask the board and the superintendent to employ the state definition of dyslexia in IEPs in Montclair. So I want to start by thanking Dr. Johnson for responding to sort of my query 2 board meetings ago. I am, again, thanking you for the screening and the curriculum and pedagogy developments that are in the works. This is all exciting progress. Specifically, though, I am concerned about the definition of dyslexia that we don't use in Montclair. For students who have dyslexia, their IEPs specify that they have a specific learning disability, and that is a federal government category that is defined there on the first piece of paper that I gave you. That definition has existed since 1975. I personally have seen, or my spouse and I have seen, probably 40 to 50 IEPs of a variety of students in Montclair that have dyslexia. None of those IEPs, except for students that have gotten an out-of-district assessment, use the word dyslexia. They use that category, specific learning disability. Now, you'll see I've highlighted for you down under point B here that the included sort of categories in the specific learning disorder, include dyslexia. So we could be using that word, and we could have been using it since 1975. We've chosen not to do that. I think that category there, specific learning disability, is a really obtuse one. We use it in Montclair intentionally to lead parents astray. That's happened to me specifically. That's happened to numerous other families that have dyslexia. It's damaging to students. It's damaging to families. It's damaging to the larger educational environment that we have in Montclair. So I'm asking that we use the state definition of dyslexia that was created in 2013. If you flip to the next document there, you'll see that this memo went out to Montclair in 2014, and the first item there is the definition of dyslexia. You see that I've highlighted the definition of dyslexia that school districts should be utilizing is as follows. Dyslexia is a specific learning disability that is neurological in origin. It is characterized by difficulties with accurate or fluent word recognition and by poor spelling and decoding abilities. It goes on. This definition should be in the IEP of every student that has decoding difficulties. The state is saying you should put it there. Now, Eve, when you were talking about Parcc, you really drilled into what kind of district are we? What kind of community are we? Are we the kind of community that's going to use the definition of dyslexia, or are we the kind of district that's going to avoid it? Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Masiel Rodriquez-Vars, then President Robertson.
Good evening. I'm Masiel Rodriquez-Vars. I'm the Executive Director for the Montclair Fund for Educational Excellence. We are the district's local education foundation. I'm very happy to be here to report to you. We are, as Eve mentioned earlier, our board and our committee of about 30 volunteer liaisons have been reviewing over about 200 proposals that we received from teachers this year. Incredible ideas from teachers. As you know, we fund grants in 3 program areas. Our educational excellence grants primarily support ideas coming from our classroom teachers as well as principals. Our social and emotional learning grants support, again, ideas from teachers and principals that specifically address the social and emotional needs of our students. And thirdly, we've been supporting grants for teachers and professional development for the last several years. And we, again, got some incredible ideas. I just wanted to give you some broad highlights of what we're hearing from teachers in terms of ideas and needs. Again, number one, really congratulations to the district and your investments in undoing racism and in social justice and restorative justice really have taken hold in our teachers. They're responding. About 65% of the proposals that we received from our English language and the ELA and social studies teachers were to get resources, primarily books, to build culturally responsive classroom libraries and school libraries. And they weren't just coming up with lists of books to put on shelves. They had really great ideas about how to use specific titles and weave them into the curriculum to directly impact our students and families and to really spark a cultural shift in our schools. So congratulations. And we feel like this is a really powerful example of how MFEE really can support and complement district investment so that we can all kind of move forward on a united vision. So they did a fantastic job on that front. We continue to get many requests for alternative seating. This is something that MFE has been funding for many years now. We're proud to say that we have funded alternative seating in all of our elementary schools, now all of our middle schools, and we got some requests from the high school. And for those of you who don't know, alternative seating are things like standing desks, wobbly stools, yoga balls, stability cushions, things that we were seeing many years ago. Requests from our special ed teachers and our general ed teachers are asking for these because they recognize that they really do make a difference for all, really any student to help increase student focus. So we're really excited. And again, what's powerful to see is the teachers aren't just putting the alternative seating in classrooms. They talk to their students about the importance of these as learning tools and really empower the students to use them as tools, which is a lifelong skill about kind of teaching kids how to identify their own needs and ways to address them. Lastly, I want to just, I know I'm out of time, so I'm going to be really quick. We are proud to fund at Hillside School the screening of screenagers. The district invested in this last year. We got a request for it again. We're doing it at Hillside district-wide. It is on December 11th for parents. Anybody in the district, 6:30 to 8:30. It's free. And they're also screening it for fifth graders. And super lastly, it's our publicly proud annual appeal is coming up, and you all get a magnet.
Thank you. President Robertson, and then Debbie Valerio Hadley.
So my thoughts are all over the place, so that buzzer's probably going to go off for me too. I just want to start by thanking everyone for their participation in our 8th annual district-wide Rap and Roll. I want to thank first the Montclair Education Association, the Montclair Principals Association, the Montclair Fund for Educational Excellence, the Parent-Teacher Association, the staff of Central Office, and just a personal thank you to the Herzog family for your wellness basket. With everything that's going on, I really wish I won it, but apparently that's not the rules. I also just want to give a quick shout out to the cheerleading team. Years ago, I was the cheerleading coach, and I echo everything that you said about being undervalued, and it makes me so proud just to see you stand up and advocate for yourself, and it gives me such regret that I didn't have the strength that you did to do that when I was the coach. And just very briefly, I wanted to touch on the statements that Dr. Johnson made regarding the November 7th Student Equity Advocate presentation. And there's some confusion in terms of the MEA's stance and mine. So I want to be very, very clear and say that I absolutely do not doubt the validity of any of these students' reports. For years, I've been an advocate for students of color, and we've been stressing to the district, to the community, to the board, how important their voice is. And that's why we think documentation and reporting is so vital, because students of color's voices so often go ignored. And if a process is not followed for them, then they will not get the services they need. And the best way I could think about it is if you think about it through the lens of a teacher, right? And the mandated teacher accountability. So I'm going to use you, President Herzog. So President Herzog, your son is taking a technology class, you're communicating with the technology teacher, and all of a sudden you go to the parent-teacher conference and find out that he's failed technology. And you're confused now because you're like, wait a minute, I've been opening his interim reports, I've been communicating with the teacher, why did he fail? So you email the teacher, you contact the teacher, can you just tell me why he failed? You're not doubting that he should have failed, but you just want to understand why. How did we get there? And then if that teacher then says to you, give me 6.5 weeks to find you the documentation that shows you why your son failed this class, how would you take that? It's already public. It's already given to your son. It's already in the records. How do you get your son the help if you don't even know how you got there? And that's what we're trying to say. That same accountability that is expected of teachers has to be expected of the adults, or we can't properly service those kids. So when we say now 6 weeks later, we're going to have a presentation, the 17th just feels like an exercise in futility, because you know what's going to happen? All those people that had a little bit of question or wanted to doubt it are now going to doubt the validity of anything we put out on the 17th, because anything that we did not have within 24 hours, which is the time teachers have to verify their grades, anything that we couldn't produce right after we made it public is going to cause all that ever wanted to doubt and dismiss those children, it's going to give them more validity than it gave those kids, and that's not fair.
Thank you. Debbie Valerio Hadley, and then Lori Montague.
Hi there. We had our most recent PTA Council meeting on Monday, December the 3rd, and I just wanted to give you a quick rundown of some of the things that we discussed. First of all, we want to publicly recognize Dr. Harrison Crawford's longtime commitment to our kids, having worked in several different positions in the district, everything from principal in our schools to many of the support areas that she's been working in ever since, and we would like to extend our condolences for her loss. We talked about report cards and tracking. We recognize that at this point we don't see how it is that the district is keeping track of whether or not parents are looking at the report cards, and we feel as a group there was a unanimous agreement that it would be important that this happen, and that there also be provisions for parents who don't have access to the internet to be able to get hard copies of report card rather than just looking at it on the internet. We talked about the new district website. Aside from some minor ways in which, several members felt as though it could be sort of made different in its homepage, the general consensus was that it was more difficult for parents to find teachers' email addresses. And so that's something that they wanted to see looked into. And there was also, this brought up a question as to whether or not the provision, and we couldn't really figure out whether it was a regulation, to have teachers respond to parents within 48 hours, if that's still the case. That was a question that many PTA members had. We talked about school tours and the need for parents to give input in the structure of those tours coming up, and we hope that that does happen. We also talked about the presentation by Mr. Joseph Graham, the student equity advocate. Many schools have been introduced to Mr. Graham and had a very positive reaction to him. Just have to catch up here. If anything, there was one school that remarked that the lack of specificity in his presentation left her very wary. Others suggested that possibly in explaining the position that it be looked at from the perspective of the various stakeholders, because parents of very young children have a difficult time understanding the need for an equity advocate from their position with their children, much different for high schoolers. But overall, they had a very positive reaction to the position and to Mr. Graham. We also talked about fundraisers, and we looked to make some schools get a lot of direction from their principals as far as what the funds that the PTA work hard to raise, how it can be used. And in other cases, the PTAs are just literally throwing money. And in this in particular time, that to me is just unfathomable. So we would like that there be more consensus about the work that the PTA does and how that money is being spent. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Marcelo Simadiris and then Kellia Sweatt. Sorry, after Lori Montague.
Good evening. My name is Lori Montague, and I am the fifth generation in Montclair. My daughter is the youngest of four children. She's a senior. She spoke this evening. She'll be graduating this year, but she's the youngest of four. She is the third generation of Montclair High School students being educated through the Montclair school system and at Montclair High School. I am a former cheerleader, and she's been on the squad for 4 years and 2 years as captain. I share that with you to express that I do know a little bit about the history of what has been taking place at Montclair High School, and in particular with the cheerleading team. I've been an active parent with the squad when we've gone through 3 different coaches. We've gone through a couple of athletic directors. We have a new superintendent. Welcome to the district. We have had 3 principals in the last 18 months. I challenge you all to really listen to what these students are saying to you. I don't think that any of you are really well-versed in knowing what has taken place with the cheerleading squad to make a decision to remove their coach without really fully listening to them, listening to the parents, attending the games, fully evaluating Coach Denise. She came in a time when the squad was really broken. I volunteered my time with my daughter to get the morale of the students high, back on course, because the athletic department had really let them down removing their coach. There was no communication to the parents about what their plans were. Football season had begun, and the cheerleaders are really treated as if they are not a sport. And even though this is her senior year, I really challenge you to really look into what's taking place with the cheerleading department, where the dollars are being spent and allocated or where they're not. There's no continuity as other sports are receiving, and it's really unfair. You're doing them a disservice if you vote this evening on replacing their coach. You are really doing them a disservice. Reevaluate what is taking place. They have expressed in detail how hurt they are, how shocked we all have been. Coach Denise she's been an amazing coach. She's been a great mentor. She spent time with the parents. And I just think it's really unfair that you have removed her without fully looking at the full situation. So I encourage you to take a step back. We're already late in the season, and I encourage you to reestablish her as their coach. Thank you.
So, Ms. Simideris, if you could just wait 1 second. Since we have a lot of students here who are here, and it's getting later and later to talk about the cheer situation, I'm just going to ask the superintendent to just give a little bit of a response to the cheer situation so that you guys can go home. And then we're going to continue with the rest of public comment.
So in terms of your sentiments, cheerleaders, you are heard. I appreciate the synergy behind your voices. And one of the things I would do, we have the captain's email. I will send an email this evening to the captain to schedule a conversation with the cheerleaders. In terms of personnel matters, we cannot discuss personnel matters as they are confidential, but I can tell you that we have no such recommendation to the board at this point. So I would ask that you allow the process to occur, but I will meet with you within the next few days per our available schedules just to hear your voices and let you know that we do want to bring some equity if your program has not been appropriately funded or you don't feel like you're getting the appropriate attention. So I just wanted to pause and let you know that and let you know that I have not advanced a recommendation for this board's agenda. So ongoing conversations will continue to occur.
So in plain speak, there's no vote on this tonight. There is no vote on this tonight. Okay? Okay, thank you, Ms. Simideris, for your patience. If you guys could maybe go home, go to bed. Carry on. Your 3 minutes.
I'll wait.
You can stay if you'd like, but
I'll wait. I'll wait.
Until
the large crowd exits.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to be distracted. I really was like people that I needed to hear what I needed to say have now exited. So you kind of disturbed what was about to happen. So I just want you to know, and only 2 people were scheduled to speak. So I felt like you could have waited. But in any event.
Okay, floor is yours.
Praise the Lord, everybody. Today, I'm coming here because I've been alerted to some of the conversation around the equity advocate, and I've been alarmed at the responses I've been seeing with regards to him. I haven't had a lot of experience with him. I know my daughter is in the process of just bringing to his attention some issues with the whole athletic process because it is not approached equitably at all. And I've been here before and I've spoken to that. And I do want to say that we're thankful that we did not reach a dead end like we usually do when we come here. because I have come here about issues regarding that, and we still haven't resolved. I know you have changed and provided times, but we don't want times. We want children to be able to give their physical forms in whenever they want, because those people are receiving stipends. And this is what I want to talk about, because I'm not even clear on the policy and practice that occurs. But what I'm seeing, I don't know if it's policy, practice, or whatever it is, it's catering to employees who receive stipends to process athletic forms, as opposed to the children that are already put at a disadvantage, and I brought this up 2016-17 school year, 2017-2018 school year. Y'all did nothing. I brought it up to MEA president. She's in the hall, but I wanted her to hear that too, because I brought it to her attention too. No one did anything. So I'm not sure about what the problem is that you all are questioning things about processes being messed up, but you all had a teacher that said they needed a slave in front of children of African descent. She's still teaching in this high school now. So any process is flawed. Let's explore it. Why is everybody trying to block? Why is everybody trying to block? Because as far as I know, NJEA is taking on a whole racism approach to institutional racism. So I'm really not clear. And, the MEA president even spoke to her lack of strength. So finally we got some kids that are willing to come up, stand up, speak up, and everybody coming for the person that's there representing them. I'm somebody who gets it written up all the time. Would you believe it? Right? You know what I do? I file a grievance. And I get my NJEA and my local agency to represent. So let's get MEA to represent their people. Let's explore these issues with these teachers who are racist and greedy, right? They good. We don't have to worry about white women and them being bothered with having to do callbacks. You call back, you get in a check. Get out of here. You all did nothing for that. Be clear. MEA did nothing for that. Be clear. You got somebody here that's doing something. Get out the way. Everybody, please.
Kellia Sweatt and then Kayesha Brand.
So, greetings to you. Good evening. I jotted down a few notes. I don't even think I have to read them because I'm here and my spirit is very full this evening. It's unfortunate that all of these beautiful children filled with all this melanin of African descent were sent out of the door. We know for a fact that here recently in this very room, the student equity advocate position and the person has been under attack. So I just wanted to know from you children, are you aware that there is an advocate in this district, and do you know what that means, and do you know what equity is? You don't have to answer here. An advocate is someone who will fight for you, not privately, but also publicly. They help you to navigate. They respond to your needs. When you hear equity, what that means is responding to the person who needs the most, the fastest. So it deals with racism. There is a position in this district. There's a man. His name is Mr. Graham. He is the student equity advocate. He's here to fight for you. So I just want to know, are you aware that he's here? That is a problem. That is a problem. There's a reason why that position was created, and it came on the backs of black parents who know that our children are being ignored. So, from my knowledge, on November 7th, Mr. Graham came here and provided you with a report that you requested. Maybe what was not expected is that he was going to tell the truth. Within his report, he spoke about racial discrimination that black children have come to him about. Within his report, he spoke about sexual assault that African American girls in this district are going through and has been ignored. Within his report, he spoke about the push-outs and suspensions of black children, HIB denials when our children are being bullied and they go for help and is being ignored. So somebody up here, I believe it was you, Ann, you asked, is it true that children are being bullied and being sent back into certain spaces? That was an awesome question, because the answer is yes. And everyone here knows it. You know how I know that you know I know it? Because last spring, that mother and myself and other National Independent Black Parent Association members attended a hearing in that room where her child was being sexually assaulted, and teachers knew. Your HIB officer kicked them out of his office. You mentioned, Ann, that these are immediate fixes. You're right. So the question is, how has it not been fixed? Is he still an HIB officer to ignore black children? Did that happen? So I know you can't answer now. You can answer everything at the end. My other point I want to mention is you mentioned that you all expected the advocate to be here tonight. The union, I see she's gone, probably out there talking to media. And that's what I see happening, just so the camera knows. So Mr. Graham was meant to be here tonight because they demanded him to be here. What happened on November 7th, children, is the advocate came here and elevated black children's voices, the voices that are normally ignored. That's what happened. So then your union and your teachers came here and you required for him to be here tonight. And the information that they gave him is confidential. They gave it to him. They trusted him. Not the principals, not the teachers. You want to know why? Because they've gone there before and they were ignored already. That's why they went to the advocate. That's why it was created. That position nor the person is to be tampered with. We're not going to take it lightly. Like I said, the Montclair chapter of NIBPA, we are here to eradicate racism within education. And we don't care what it looks like. Anybody who's not driving equity, we're going to drive you out. If you're not driving equity, we're driving you out. So at the very end, the last thing I have to say are some questions. Because I know you can't have a back and forth, but these are the questions for the sake of truth and transparency. First of all, I want to teach you something. Anytime somebody wants to do something publicly, like there's been hangings before, there's a difference in a hanging and a lynching. A lynching is so that there will be an appearance, an audience to teach people how to stay in their place. That's why you wanted that man here tonight. And it's inappropriate. It's inappropriate. So here's the other piece. Number one, are you aware that there is a false reporting system in this district where you know black boys have been expelled, but on your reports is not reflected? You can answer that at the end. Please do so publicly. In addition to that, are you aware that colorism is taking place in this district where black children's phenotype was being degraded? And one teacher stood up against that. So if you're aware of that, please answer that, because that one teacher was pushed out too. Other thing I want to know, are you aware of the fact that 3 children were sexually harassed at Renaissance last year? And answer that too when you get to it.
Thank you, Ms. Sweatt.
And no, I'm not done.
I know.
And with all of these things happening, have you done anything about it? Expulsion is different than suspension. Expulsion means you leave and you don't come back. That's what's happening to our boys. Do you know about it? And if you do, are you immediately fixing it?
Thank you. Ms. Brand and then Weslyn Zezima.
The last time I was at this podium, Ms. Branch, yes. The last time I was at this podium, I was livid. Tonight, livid is not a word. I should not have to be told to go chase after the children that need to hear the importance of who Joseph Graham is. My daughter is sitting over there. She knows from what's going on in our household, but the other children and the parents do not know what a student advocate of equity is. Guess what? I didn't know. You know how I found out about the student advocate of equity? Because NIBPA texts me because they know my passion as a parent and the children in this community. They sent me a text and told me to come to Glenfield to meet him. Not through the administration or anybody from the Board of Education. I get random, irrelevant emails every day on my phone. That should have been an email sent out to the whole district letting us know who he is. How dare anybody in a higher level think that email to let somebody in that position or power that's going to help our black children know who he is? That's not okay. He is and I'm not just saying this to put anybody on a platform. I deal with genuineness of rights and wrong. I seen Mr. Graham. He sat at not 1, not 2, but 3 of the meetings for my son. Not only did he sit there on
Board of Education time, he reached out to me via email after hours to say, Ms. Branch, this is going to be okay. You are going to be okay as a parent, and your son is going to be okay. He didn't have to do that. He didn't have to text me and follow up with the different specific situation that was happening in the injustice of my son. So not only did he do it for me, I've seen him in the community. How many people can come in the 4th Ward down by Glenfield School and be out on the street knocking on doors? This is not something I seen him on my block. If you don't know where I live, it's okay. But I live in the 4th Ward and not afraid to tell anybody. I see Mr. Graham out his car on my block talking to parents in the community, letting them know who he is, passing out cards and letting them know, how can I help you? How can I help your children? This is who I am. But that should have been done at a higher level to let not just parents. Every parent can't come to the Board of Education meeting. Every parent can't do that. But their parents need to know. And I'm here to tell, as a parent, of not one, I have a child that's here in the district already. She needs to know that there's a student advocate here that can fight for her. How does she know? Through me, not through the district. And Joseph Brand not only is a blessing to me, his position needs to be tripled. And he needs to have more Joseph Graham. And guess what? I'm a part of the NIBPA. If you know me, you know how passionate I am about not just my children, all these children. So I'm glad to be a part of it, and I'm glad to fight for children of our color to make sure that they got everything they need. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Branch. Weslyn Zezima and then Rana Thompson.
Good evening, everyone. Kellia basically covered everything. I've been a parent in the Montclair school system since about, when did we move in? 2008. And I've had both positive experiences as well as negative. However, one of the most consistent issues has been the negligence of addressing students' concerns, particularly children of color. My daughter, who's now a college student, doing quite well, has had to deal with bullying. She's had to deal with sexual harassment. I brought it to the attention of her principal at the time, who really didn't address it. When I told him about the bullying, he said, it's just children fooling around. When I brought up the sexual harassment, no response. It's not until I had the police get involved, then I got a phone call stating, let's have a meeting. Many years later, here we are, same nonsense. It seems to me as though you guys have failed our students. And I'm quite disappointed, to be quite honest with you. Now, I have to say, it's of concern to me that I get emails about late buses. I get emails about new staff members. I get emails about school events. However, when it came to Joseph Graham, I heard nothing of it until tonight. That's disgusting. It's appalling, and it's unacceptable in Montclair. Montclair, before I moved into Montclair, my understanding was this is a diverse community where all is welcome. Being here, I've learned otherwise. I've had to advocate for my children. Thank goodness I'm able to do so. What about the parents who are unable to do so? What about the parents who are unaware of, what about the parents who are unaware of the services that are provided to them? Now, from what I understand, Joseph Graham's position, I'm sorry, I'm really upset right now. Let me just breathe. He's been a student advocate of equity for over 9 months now, and the students don't know about it? Really? Why hasn't there been an email to let the children know this? Why haven't the parents been aware? you guys have some work to do. We got to do better. Because right now, you're failing us. And you've been failing the children for years now. Forever. It's got to stop.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Ronna Thompson and Plushett Alexander. Plushett.
It's on, right? You can hear me? Okay. Good evening. I'm Ronna Thompson. I am a parent of a middle schooler here in Montclair schools. I've had 2 other children who have graduated from Montclair High. And I wanted to address Mr. Graham and his position because Mr. Graham I found out from him through NIPBA as well. And I had a situation with my child that he helped with. And because of him stepping in is how doors got open for things to be addressed, because it went through the proper channels, but she was turned away. She was turned away from the guidance counselor, the HIB coordinator, when she's coming asking for help, as well as other children. They were told to leave the office because there's too many of them. And it wasn't just for things that are going on at that school. It was for the racial insensitivity that was going on. That was not addressed the way it should have been addressed. And he's helped her. He's helped me. He checks. He follows up. And he makes sure things are moving. Nancy, is it not true that he did not just help you? Yeah. So he's out here for the kids. He's out here to make sure that things are done. And the things that he is doing is phenomenal. Without him, I honestly can't say I would know exactly how things would have played out had I not have come to the NIPBA first and then him step in, because I went through the principal, I went through the guidance counselor, I was disrespected, I was belittled, and it's ridiculous. And something needs to be done.
Thank you. Ms. Alexander?
Alexander.
Yes, Ms. Alexander.
I'm aware. Okay. I am aware. I only met Mr. Graham once before this, but I'm coming here as a parent of 3 black kids in here, 2 boys, 1 girl. And I want to know if any one of you white people, parents, did I say that like that? Came home and said a black child sexually assaulted me, what would you guys have done? Right now, there's a kid still at Renaissance who sexually assaulted kids, and for some reason, he's still in that school. I could only say if it was my kids, that was a whole different chapter. But I want to know from Johnson, who I swear everybody who I talked to, I said this lady will be gone within a year or 2 years. Because what the black people didn't do, the white people going to take her out. Being honest. I like to be honest. I want to know, what would you guys do if your daughter came home and said a black kid sexually assaulted her? Would that black kid still be at school? Probably not. You guys want him expelled, gone to another school. So why are you guys sitting there and the white child is still at school after he assaulted a black girl? Can anybody answer that right now? Anytime, speak right now.
As I said earlier, this isn't a dialogue. This is your
I know.
opportunity to say the things that you want to say, and you have another minute and a half or so.
But I'm just asking, what would you guys have done?
We can't have a dialogue with people at the podium, but you have another minute and a half if there are other things you'd like to
But
share
then
with the
it's-
board.
Yes. And nobody's doing anything. Kendra, I was told that you can't do nothing. You just got here, so you're not aware of the whole thing. So everybody's like, give you a chance. But yet still, this kid is still at the school. And nothing has been done. He's still chilling and hanging out and talking to the kids who he messed with.
Ms. Sweatt, Ms. Sweatt,
and
please.
And he also said he cannot be touched because he has an IEP and he's special. So if he can do all this, why is he still there?
We are not going to discuss individual students or employees. We cannot do that. It is illegal. We cannot do it.
But why haven't you guys taken care of it? Let's do that
And we
part.
cannot talk to you about what we have or have not done
But then you
because
guys
we
just
would be
haven't had the
breaking the
purpose
law.
I need.
Okay, thank you. That brings us to the end of public comment. Dr. Johnson, is there anything that you'd like to say in summary in response to any of the concerns that came up?
Absolutely. So a few things. First, I would like to address the questions and comments regarding our physical process. During the school day, there are no teachers receiving stipends or staff member receiving stipends for collecting physicals. That is incorrect. During the school day, that does not happen. So after hours, we do compensate our staff who stay beyond their school day to assist us in this process. One of the primary reasons we don't take forms directly from children because it prolongs the process. Who cares? So Thank you, Board Member Cavish. The number one reason we don't take forms directly from students is that it prolongs the process. Students aren't able to answer questions. They're not able to sign with the parent there. The parent can sign the materials. The parent can answer questions. And we attempted last year, per the request of community members, to augment our process and allow students to turn in forms for sports during their lunch period. And over 50% of those forms, we had to follow up with students. We had to call parents because the forms were incomplete. So we are all open to solutions that work and to make sure that we are able to collect the information in a timely fashion. Unlike many other districts, we provide services to our young people to make sure that every single student who would like to participate in sports can. We offer free physicals. We offer opportunities right here at Montclair High School for young people to come with their families and get cleared to play sports. With everything, we can always enhance our processes, but we need to enhance our processes in a way that's efficient and one that will help us get the end result in a more effective fashion. Also, in terms of the transportation issue that was eloquently spoken by one of our students. It's important for our young people to understand that there's a 2.5 mile restriction. So this idea that we are unilaterally deciding to transport some students and then consciously deciding not to transfer other students is false. If you recall multiple presentations from students last year in which we met with the students at the high school, the transportation manager met with the students at the high school, our business administrator met with the students at the high school. The reality is Upper Montclair is 2.5 plus miles from the high school than other places in the area. So we are not putting one group of students over or above any other group of students. I implore people to become aware of the statute regarding transportation, and I will definitely make that information available because it's concerning to have the idea out there that we are unilaterally making decisions to transport some students instead of others. So I thank you for the opportunity to clarify that piece. Furthermore, as it pertains to questions posed regarding the student equity advocate, I just want to give you a little bit of context. In April of 2018, the student equity advocate began his tenure here. Prior to that, there was multiple conversations at the board meeting. There was multiple conversations at the Montclair Civil Rights Commission. There was multiple conversations at the NAACP. There was multiple conversations, as several people noted, the National Independent Black Parent Association. There were multiple conversations about why we needed this position was coming, and what we're going to do once the position got here. From the time the position actually came to life, from April until the end of the year, Mr. Graham was attending meetings. Mr. Graham was at the high school. Mr. Graham was at events passing out cards. I intentionally did not send out an email because I wanted folks to interact with Mr. Graham personally, to have a personal experience. This is not another way for parents to voice their concerns and students to voice their concerns. If you take a moment and go to our website and look at the job description, it's a very focused job description. And to send it out to 67 students or 6,700 students to talk about this is someone that will help you. For one person, you need to be strategic and focused. I made that decision, not the board. So if there's concerns and you have feedback, I'd be more than happy to engage you into terms of my rational thinking. It was very thoughtful, and we're still rolling out a very thoughtful approach to that matter so that one person can be effective and managing the concerns of many. In terms of the few other concerns that were posted for our consideration, I am aware and I have addressed 2 incidents in which students were expelled and not legally expelled. And we've addressed that. Our numbers have been corrected, and we wanted to make sure that we become public. As I mentioned, those 2 incidents were from last year, and both of them were seniors, and we had those incidents addressed. The students were able to participate in graduation, and we are making sure that those type of situations do not happen again. I am aware of personally 1 HIB denial, and that issue was addressed. Appropriate internal corrective actions were taken. And again, I'll be more than willing to have further discourse with any other parent or guardian or community member about that topic. In terms of the data reporting for the presentation, I am going to be leading the presentation on December 17th. The student equity advocate will be present. I am personally verifying the information. I am personally making sure that any information that we share has been documented. It has been thoroughly vetted so that our stakeholders will have no question to doubt information that we give them. We are uplifting and providing clarity to voices that have been traditionally marginalized, and we are going to continue to do that work. But in addition to that, we want to step back and look at what systems and structures across the district that we can correct to ensure that these issues don't continue to fester. So we are being thoughtful about that, and I invite you to come back and participate in that conversation. As it pertains to some of the concerns around our PTA council, I think it's absolutely critical that there's a report card tracking system. It's my understanding that Genesis allows that, so I will check into that and have a follow-up, if not sooner, but definitely by the next board meeting. In terms of our district website, we are addressing with our vendor the directory. There are some concerns with our directory that it's not easily accessible, and we hope to have that piece addressed very quickly. We do have expectation that emails are returned within 48 hours. So if that's not happening, I would implore you to discuss that matter with the immediate supervisor so that we can make sure we provide additional supports. As it pertains to school tours, I've already made publicly, as I did at the last meeting, we will be having a committee in which parent voice will be a part of that committee so that we can make sure that we have all considerations when we reconceive our school tours. It's important to note that parents really don't get to pick what one school they want to attend. It's a choice ranking system in which you rank your schools. So it's critical that we make sure that our parents know what all of our schools offer and that we are communicating the policies and procedures regarding placement here in Montclair. The last piece I would like to say is that we are committed, and I appreciate all the passion that's in the room. We are committed to addressing issues. We will continue to work together to address issues. And I would encourage folks to bring those issues in a way in which we can exchange and come up with solutions that work. I'm not in the business of tearing down people. I'm in the business of uplifting people. And in order to do that, we need to come to the table with facts, not accusations, and clarity around what we need to do in order to move forward. Any other issues that you would like to present to me, please make sure this is not a time, I'm not answering any questions directly, but please make sure you send me an email or you call. I do return my emails well under 48 hours. So I would definitely continue that discourse then. Cheerleaders who are still here, I look forward to meeting with you within the next couple of days. The captain will have an email in her inbox once I get home this evening, and we will continue to have conversations to make sure that issues that you've presented are getting some opportunity to be heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Much appreciated. Thank you, everyone, for sharing your thoughts. Thank you, Superintendent, for answering where you could. We're going to move now to the business items on the agenda. We don't have any minutes to approve. Nothing for the Board of Education. Next is the business office. Does anybody need to take out 1, 2, or 3? Or
be reminded you're adding 4 through 7. Those are the additional capital withdrawal, the award of the contract for the Watchung Annex based on the negotiations, and the 2 settlement agreements discussed in executive.
So the 2 settlements are in there as well. Okay.
So you have 1 through 7.
So does anybody need to take any of those out, or can we vote on them as a block? The 6 and 7? So can I get a motion on L 1 through 5?
So move.
Oh, you can abstain as to yourself. Can I get a second on 1 through 5? Okay. Any discussion where we can? Yeah, we can discuss all of these. No? Roll call?
Ms. Herzog.
Yes.
Ms. Church.
Yes.
Mr. Connick. Ms. Jana.
Yes, except abstain it to myself.
Abstain to yourself. Mr. Cabbage.
Yes.
Ms. Mernon. And Ms. Robinson.
Yes.
Can I get a motion on L 6 and 7, please?
So move.
A second? Ms. Robinson. Roll call.
If folks could lower the volume a little bit, we really need to keep the meeting going, and we're doing business, and it's important that we hear each other. So if folks could head on outside or lower the volume, we'd appreciate it. Roll call, please.
L 6 and 7. Ms. Herzog.
Yes.
Ms. Church.
Yes.
Mr. Connick.
Yes.
Ms. Jana. Mr. Cabbage.
Yes.
Ms. Mernon. And Ms. Robinson.
Yes.
Can I get a motion on the M, please? Can I get a second? No discussion. Roll call, please.
Ms. Herzog.
Yes.
Ms. Church. Mr. Connick.
Yes.
Ms. Jana. Mr. Cabbage. Ms. Mernon. And Ms. Robinson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, there's no N. O, approval of field trips. Can I get a motion, please? Can I get a second? Any discussion?
Ms. Herzog.
Yes.
Ms. Church. Mr. Connick. Ms. Jana. Mr. Kavich.
Yes.
Ms. Mernon. And Ms. Robinson.
Yes.
P, personnel. Can I get a motion, please?
And again, that'll be P 1 through 9.
1 through, can I get a motion on P 1 through 9?
Second.
No discussion. Roll call, please.
Ms. Herzog.
Yes.
Ms. Church. Mr. Connick. Ms. Jana. Mr. Kavich.
Yes.
Ms. Mernon. And Ms. Robinson.
So, folks, as a reminder, we are going back briefly into exec. So with that bearing in mind, it's 9:30. Does anybody have any brief board comments they'd like to make? Briefly, before we go back again into exec?
The Kwanzaa celebration at Montclair Library, Public Library, is December 16th. I expect to see you all because I will be dancing. That is all.
What time?
No. It's during the day. I have to find the flyer. I thought they would have sent the flyer out.
It's a Sunday.
It's a Sunday. It's a Sunday.
Any other brief comments?
Very briefly, I want to extend my condolences to Dr. Harrison Crawford. I was babysitting and wasn't able to be there, but I just wanted to publicly extend my condolences. I want to congratulate the most modest board member I have ever met for receiving an award from Partners for Health, because and Sister to Sister received one as well. These ladies, whoa, they just do amazing work and never blow their own horn, and I'm just, sitting at my desk writing poetry while they are out really making change in the world. So congratulations, Ann and Latifah. And finally, I went to the, it's now Advocates for Children of New Jersey breakfast. It's their 40th anniversary. Seal Zalkind, another wonderful Montclair resident, is the director and has been for about 30 years, and she's the former chair of the library board and done many wonderful things. And Steve Adebato was the keynote speaker. And what did his keynote speech wind up being about? Eve Robinson and the Montclair Pre-K. So that was, and all of the Seal and Steve and Eve are so instrumental in pre-K in Montclair, and I'm just hoping that we can move in that direction again. And wow, Eve, I know you were surprised, but that was pretty amazing. So congratulations to all my fellow board members, and thank you, Priscilla, for being a workhorse. Oh, my God.
Any other brief comments? Brief comments before we go back into executive.
I'm not promising you it's that brief, but I will attempt to be brief. Thank you to Mr. Graham for your presentation on November 7. Frankly, if I was in Mr. Graham's shoes, I might be looking for another job because it appears some people want to run him out of town. And that's a shame. So thank you, Mr. Graham, for your presentation on November 7, and I look forward to a continued presentation on that topic. It's a beautiful, if I can use the word, beautiful funeral today that I was able to watch, and I'm sure others were able to watch. And I'd like to think that the tone and the words that we heard at that funeral today can be lessons for us all.
Yeah.
I just want to ask if it's possible for us to look at this busing situation. I know the state says that we don't have to transport kids when they live 2.6 miles away from the school. I happen to share some of the concerns because I happen to live off of Alexander, and my daughter's whole school career, the high school, was we faced the same situation. She lived too far away to walk, and my husband and I both worked. If she had to walk to school, she probably would have been as late as what we were hearing today. So our alternative was shuffling our schedule, finding a neighbor, or putting her on the number 28 bus. It's very difficult for people. what I was thinking while they were talking and hoping, we try to find solutions for so many different things, and I'm certainly not advocating that we have the same intricate bus system that we have for the elementary division where they pick up, two buses pick up on the same corner for different schools. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is we make a lot of accommodations for a lot of different things because we hold very highly the fact that we want to do everything we can for kids' success. Maybe there's a way we could look at central spots. I mean, these are high school kids. My daughter could have walked up to Sunset Park to meet a bus that was going to meet high school kids in that area that all shared the same difficulty. That maybe you could have one or two or even three drops on one route that these kids could walk to within a reasonable distance and then be dropped off at school. Because it is a real issue. And I know that the only difference is there'd be no reimbursement to the district, but it would be a solution to a problem that I lived and I shared what I heard because it does exist on both sides of town, not just one side of town. So I would just like to put it out there that I would like to see if maybe we can have a conversation about that and see if there's something that we could possibly do that's very creative.
We did do subscription busing. We did do it so that where there were spaces on buses, people could get on them. It did cost something, but we did do that. We did not discuss the possibility, what you're talking about, the sort of centralized locations. But I'd love us to not discuss this anymore now. So if there's any other board comment.
So maybe we can add that, though, to that follow-up thing to look at?
Yes, let's add that to the follow-up.
Because it does come up every year.
And we have made tweaks each year, so.
Yeah.
Talk about it.
So in regards to the cheerleaders' comments, I don't want to get into a discussion around the coach because I know that's something that you're looking at. But one thing really struck me and bothered me, which is one of the students mentioned that for their one competition of the year, there was less than a handful of kids that showed up. And that's not right, because these kids are out cheering in all kinds of weather, you know, a variety of sports, and I really hope that our coaches will encourage those athletes who are being cheered for to go and cheer the at the annual cheerleading competition. So I hope that I hope we can have some follow-up on that and actually know for the next one how many students attended from which sports. Also, on the issue of dyslexia, is there a reason why the district would be reluctant to use the dyslexia definition? I'm going to ask the uncomfortable question in public.
I think there is a reason why, and I think simply put is a lot of accountability when you name something. And that's the work that we're doing now, is to put structures and supports in place that we can name and support within our district. And that's the work we're doing now.
So as we're doing this work, and accountability is a really good thing, especially when kids are involved, I would formally request that the policy committee look at this, and I understand there may be structures that need to be built to fully support it, and there may be a timing issue, but that we as a district put in our policy that this is what we do because it's the right thing to do for kids. So that's just a formal request I have of the policy committee to take that on.
Can I just add to that a little bit? You know, the term dyslexia is very broad-based. That's part of the problem. It is a word that defines something that is this big. Possibly one of the other things that needs to be addressed is, as the protocols and procedures for special ed are being developed, in the writing of the IEPs, specifically in that area of specific disability, they can delineate it more specifically. In other words, use the term with a very, very specific definition that the goals and accommodations would be able to match. It has a companion piece to it, just by saying dyslexia, so that there would have to also be a lot of training, which I have to say this also, child study teams need to be brought up to snuff with what dyslexia actually is, because the state, when they came up with this designation, as I said, came up with this very broad definition. That in itself would help if just the wording of the IEP with the goals and the accommodations be more specific. And then you would need the training of the staff to be able to put in the accommodations that are required for all the little nuances of dyslexia.
So I'm not suggesting it in a vacuum. I'm suggesting that we look at it thoughtfully and obviously with our special needs expertise on hand, and then but that I think it has to reside at the level of policy.
No, I think it has to come into policy, but
guys,
can I say one more thing?
No, not tonight. This was board comment. We have business that was on the agenda that we have to do, that I want people's brains not to be too tired to do.
Okay, but
when
you
we
know
go
what?
back
This is
into-
board business, and this is board comment time, and I'm going to use this time between our 2 workshop meetings, which are a month apart, to finish my comments.
Okay, I thought your comments were finished, and that what was now happening is we were getting into a pedagogical dialogue, which is not typically what we do in board comment.
Okay, so I think we've gone through that comment, which is the request to the policy committee. I just have one further comment.
Yes.
I had the privilege of going to an evening of storytelling hosted by the JED Foundation in New York a week ago. The JED Foundation does a lot of work around suicide prevention. Specifically, it does quite a bit of work at the college level, but it's also doing some work at the high school level. I think they're a really interesting organization, and they're someone that we might want to sit down and talk with about work that we can do in our schools. But one of the most interesting takeaways that I had from this was the storytelling was sort of a moth-informed storytelling, and the power of stories. And it's something that I think we as a district should look at, so that our students have avenues or forums within which to tell their stories. And I'm not talking just in this context, but more broadly, I think students need to tell their stories. It's very healing, and it is restorative. And so that's something I think I'd like to see us perhaps consider.
So again, on behalf of the board, several of us were able to attend Dr. Harrison Crawford's husband's viewing and funeral on Monday. She's a long-time, very valued member of the board. So on behalf of the board, I wanted to extend my condolences and our condolences to Dr. Harrison Crawford and to her family. And I'm glad that Ms. Robinson, Ms. Church, and I were able to be there. The board is going back into executive session. No action will be taken. The next public meeting of the Montclair Board of Education will be held on Monday, December 17th, 2018 at 5 p.m. in the George Innes Annex Atrium at 141 Park Street. The meeting will go into closed session until approximately 7:30 p.m. when it will reopen to the public. May I have a motion to go back into executive session? So moved. Second. All right, all in favor? Let's go.